This year has been one of the hardest years of my life, and not in like a dramatic way, but in a quiet, grinding, disorienting kind of way. There were moments this year, and I don't know if you can relate, but moments where I just couldn't think straight. Not because, I wasn't capable, wasn't smart, wasn't whatever, but because everything inside of me was just loud, the pressure, the noise, all the stuff that was going on in my head. And I spent the better part of this year um, trying to rescue a version of my business that the market had already moved on from. Look, I'm an executive coach, and the power of artificial intelligence, one of the research that has been done is that so many people are using AI kind of as a therapist. And that's disrupted some of the need for some people to see someone like me. And I've got all sorts of opinions about that because it's trained to people please, and the AI is trained to like tell you things you want to hear. It doesn't necessarily hold space and presence and objectivity the way that another human can. Okay, enough of my soapbox. I have more, but I'm just gonna stop right there. But the fact that I was trying to run my business the way that I had always run my business, even though the whole market was shifting, and let's be clear, it wasn't just technology, but also the way that people are seeing themselves in light of everything that's going on in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain, a lot of shame, a lot of frustration, a lot of uncertainty. And that has changed the industry for, coaching, and some for good, in opportunity to be able to help, to be able to be there in a time of need, and help course correct individuals into a place of power and a place of possibility. That what an opportunity. On the other side, it's like, well, the way we used to do lead generation, the way that we used to find clients, that's all changed. And I was still trying to do my lead generation the way that I used to. And that's called sunk cost bias. I thought, well, I'm different. My business is different, and people will still respond to what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, who I am, how I am, blah, blah, blah. And it cost me. I kept thinking, if I just push a little harder, if I just spend a little bit more money, I'll hire this consultant. We'll try this ad campaign. We'll do this funnel. I just could not fix things. I pushed harder and harder, grinded, pushed, dragged, and I just couldn't fix it. But if I could just do this, that was my mindset. It's just this one thing, just this one more thing, and then it'll be fixed. The truth is, I wasn't trying to save the business, though that was obviously a big piece of it. I was trying to save my identity. Like, the way that I was doing things was comfortable, and I didn't want to change on some level. And in the midst of it, I didn't see that. And I don't think it was necessarily something evil or bad. It just was. And I think that a lot of things that I go through personally prepare me for helping people like you, helping those that I serve. And so the irony of what I do is that my life is a petri dish of lots of learning. And sometimes that learning is fun, and sometimes it's not. And this year was a gut wrenching year of me having to face ego, pride, shame, old belief patterns. And in that deterioration of the business, I was hanging on to team members longer than I should have. And as such, I started carrying the debt load out of my own pocketbook. So the business is losing money. It's bleeding money every month after month after month. And I just kept believing, well, this next thing's going to work and this next thing's going to work. And it's going to work, not just work, but it's going to work so good. We're going to get caught up on all the stuff that we lost. And it didn't happen. So I had to let go of my team and some of the people that had been with me for, a couple of years. I had to say goodbye. And it was one of the hardest things, one of the hardest decisions. And then even after I let go of my team, I just carried the pain of that, as well as like I let them down. I let someone else down. I let myself down. And with that, again, came more pain or more shame. And I had to go through a process of letting go of what meaning I was placing on those choices, on that situation. And again, it wasn't so much that this was right or this was wrong or different facets of it, as much as it was me being forced to face the reality of the industry, the reality of what was actually happening in the world, more than it was, my stuff. And it just so happened that, like all of us, our stuff gets in the way of the reality that's around us. Fucking irony. So I'm climbing out of the financial debt right now and rebuilding the business on different, precepts and different methodologies. I'm not proud of what happened. I definitely don't wear a badge. It's like, I really jacked up my business. I really sunk so much into debt to save a thing. I'm not ashamed of it either. Meaning, even though I'm not proud of the situation, I'm not ashamed that I got caught in that situation. Now, in the midst of it, I couldn't tell you that. But now, looking back at it, the things that I learned, the things it taught me, the things it revealed have given me a different sense of myself and my fortitude and my wisdom. Because how I responded to that after those first few days made all the difference in the world. Yes, I felt crappy. Yes, I lost some sleep. Yes, I had some shame for the first few days. And then suddenly I felt this new kind of perspective where some of the things that I should have had my pulse, I should have been holding the pulse to, some of the things I should have had vision upon, I wasn't, because I was allowing other team members to do those things when some of those things I was like sloughing off to them or putting on responsibility to them were things that I needed to have purview on, that I should have been making choices on, things that I should have been leading in a different way. And the way that I built my team then is not the way I would build my next team, if I even need a team per se with the power of technology right now and AI. But I will tell you this, that the biggest thing that I think I had to persevere through was the shame building up to that choice of letting the team go. Like let me from that time to probably a year plus of that, which had been back in like June is when that all happened. So let's go back into end of 2024. And I was starting to experience some of the changes and some of the losses in the business. And every year for the last 10 years, my business has progressively increased in revenue. I've done over $1 million in high ticket sales. Like, we've always done really well. And this is the first year that our revenue number is lower than last year. And in all of this, building up and me seeing the writing on the wall, the shame that I was feeling and mind you, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3-wing 2, which is really highly based to performance. So it's my perpetual thing I have to wrestle with, is understanding that my performance is not about what I do out there, but the performance is about who I am, blah, 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 blah. There's all sorts of psychology that if you've been following me long enough, you're familiar with. And if not, stick around, you'll learn more. There's this sense of shame I was feeling. It would cause me to be a little bit more reclusive here locally in Lisbon, Portugal, where I live. I wasn't attending the events that I normally would have attended, the parties, the people that I would hang out with typically, because I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer. And if someone asked me like, hey, how are things? How's your business? Blah, blah, blah. Like if you know me, like it's really hard for me to like hide stuff. What you see is what you get. And I wear my feelings sometimes on my sleeve. And so I don't want to be the guy that like comes in and like, everything is awesome. And then Angus is like, how are you doing? Well, my business sucks. It really is painful right now. Like, I don't want to be that guy. And that revealed something else to me, is that my identity was attached to my bank account. My numbers going up made me feel good. My numbers going down made me feel like shit. So part of what I learned this year in recalibrating through 2025, I got clarity on me, clarity on the business, clarity on my purpose. There was some entanglement that mixed Angus into the business, and that's not healthy. So while shame is what kept me isolated, it was that clarity, vulnerability, transparency, honesty, responsibility, like all those different things. That clarity is what finally brought me back out of it. And then I'll also tell you about some of this, lessons I've learned in 2025 or recalibration. I'm not sure what I'm titling this yet, but I will tell you that I've been writing this book, as many of you know. You've been hearing me talk about it, or will be hearing me talk about it. And I always say to people, I've said this so many times. I said, I didn't necessarily write this book wrote me. Because while I'm going through all this stuff I just shared with you, I'm writing about all this power and possibility for people. And there's this, again, a dichotomy, a paradox of sorts, where the things I'm writing, I'm learning some of these or readdressing some of these or going deeper on some of these things in real time, in my own business, in my own life. And I would have some bouts with imposter syndrome that I didn't expect. Who the hell do you think you are to be writing this book? Who's going to listen to you if you haven't perfected all of this, if you don't have all the answers and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh man, how brutal my mind became in the midst of some of this stuff. And so, in the midst of this imposter syndrome, it was never a question of, can I write? Because I knew I was on to something. I knew that what I was writing was good. It was that, who am I to write this? Who am I the one to write this? That's the thing that I struggle with. Like, I'm no, Atomic Habits guy. I'm just fill in the blank. Whatever big guru guy you want to say. I'm not that person or girl, whatever. And I'm facing all these things in my business. I'm facing these things in this book. And my brain was just swimming in all this stuff. I was pulling back from relationships. I wasn't attending the things I used to, wasn't doing things. And as an extrovert, that's also additionally painful. So I'm a recluse. And it wasn't so much that I was underneath a lot of shame spiral, because it wasn't going the other way where I started to make really bad decisions, getting unhealthy or addiction, or like I didn't go that direction. Instead, it was like I'm struggling to trust myself. I'm struggling to trust my judgment. I'm struggling to trust the perspective and wisdom I've already gained. That was the brutal tug of war. And I heard something from Chris Williamson just this morning. He was being interviewed by Stephen Bartlett at Diary of a CEO. And one day I will be on both their shows. I'm just going to speak that out into existence. Chris Williamson, Stephen Bartlett, call me. I heard them say on this interview, Chris was on Stephen's show, and he said something to the effect of this idea that we treat things as like a provisional draft. Like once I get through this season, I launch this, I accomplish this, I achieve this, then something begins. Then I can be happy. Then I can get married. Then I can, have joy. Then I can have time. Whatever it is. And we are guilty of doing that. And in many ways, that was kind of a kick in the gut for me, because I was like, as soon as I finish this book, and then I finished the book, and it's like, but when this book, like I have the copies of the book, even before the book releases, then I can, and then there was like, but when the book releases, May 5th, 2026, when that book releases, then I can start making the real money. Then I can get on the stages. Then I can get on the podcast. Then I can whatever. And in this interview, what they were talking about is that life begins right now. And that was such a glaring mirror for me in that moment, because one of the things I wrote about in my book is this concept of today. It's an acronym, the only day actually yours. And one of the things that I'm going to share here in just a few moments is, what I want for 2026. How do I want to approach it differently? And this talk that these guys had, the thing that Chris said, he said that 3 generations from now, no one will remember our names. And that's not depressing. As they said, it's freeing. Because why are we putting up so much value on what is actually happening right now? We're raising the stakes of our decisions, of our accomplishments, our achievements, and will I be remembered? Again, I'm an Enneagram 3-wing 2. I want to be seen. I want to be appreciated. I want to be applauded. I want to be recognized, blah, 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 blah. Like these are things I constantly have to wrestle with. And so when I think no one's going to remember my name in 3, damn it, what? And yet I feel a lot of relief, a lot of pressure taken off my shoulder. Because here's the irony. As high performers, we give ourselves the least permission to struggle. Let me say that again. As high performers, we give ourselves the least permission to struggle. Like we want to get it right. We want to be perfect. We want to be revered. And for those of you who've been around me, like I just want to keep it real, especially in this day of AI. We have to be more human. And human success to me is now taking on a completely new meaning. And writing the book that I wrote changed me and helped me process through all those things that I went through to give me a new clarity, strength, foundation, principles, like heartbeat that I didn't have before, to where I'm not afraid to be criticized anymore. I'm not afraid to speak my mind anymore. I'm not afraid to be who I know I am to be anymore. And the things that we've raised the stakes upon, that we're so anxious about, the things that we put so much value on, the things that we've made to be life and death, or life or death, but really aren't, the amount of shame that we put on ourselves, like for being anxious, for having anxiety, for having worry, for having imposter syndrome. The fear isn't the problem. It's the shame about the fear that is. What if doing things afraid is just the thing we're supposed to do? Like, that was a huge lesson to me, even though I talk about this stuff all the time. It was like it went to a whole nother level. Because here's something else I realized this year that, again, I knew to some degree, but now I know it to an nth degree. And that is, challenge is to cause us to grow. And without challenge, there is no growth. Everything that grows faces some sort of resistance, and we need that resistance in order to get stronger, in order for our roots to go deeper. Here in Portugal, just to the north, there's one area that grows grapes called the Douro Valley. And the Douro Valley is in amongst these mountains, and it experiences extreme conditions where in the summer, the heat gets trapped and it gets really hot. In the winter, and they don't necessarily get snowfall, but it does get cold, and those same valleys trap the cold and the moisture of that cold, the humidity of that cold. And so it forces those plants to face these, nearly unbearable conditions. So what happens is all of the grapes get highly concentrated, the way that it pulls all of its sugars and everything it does from the earth to make a very unique flavor to its wine. Wow, what if your life is like that? What if there are seasons in your life where you face harder, deeper, richer challenges than others? And in that time, it's not there to reveal your weakness and your frailties and your bullshit. if anything else, it's there to clear the path of all of those, so that you find out what you're made of, that you grow more resilient, that you become more adaptable, that you experience more empathy, compassion, humility. You get more audacity because you realize those things couldn't kill you. This is the year that stripped away a lot for me. And I think even you who are listening, for many, this has been the same for you. It's been a crazy different year. And I would tell you it's probably not going to get any easier. As things continue to change and transform and become something different, we're in a season of the world that is providing us opportunity to evolve. I mean, that's our whole premise at Evolve Leadership is just to evolve. And while you can look at this year and say, wow, it just stripped me of so much, there's also another perspective of what it gave you. It gave you something powerful. It gave you that resilience. It gave you that perspective. It gave you perhaps an opportunity to see through a different lens. And what if you embrace that lens for what's to come? And I think it looks different for everyone. I don't think it's what my experience is probably different than your experience, and that's okay. But I want to invite you to discover your experience. What is it teaching you? What are you learning? For me, I'm clearer than ever before. Like, I am so excited about this book. I'm so excited about the direction that I'm taking with helping people to be decisive and clear and have clarity in and amongst the pressure, because I feel like I walked through it. I'm bleeding that, and now I'm making it contagious. You see, not everything has to be fixed. I had to stop lying to myself about what was to actually work for me. I had to let go of what I knew, what I was comfortable, what I defined myself as, so that I could then move to something bigger, better, and more than what I ever would have been if I'd stayed. We go through these challenges to push us to the next thing. And honestly, not everyone's going to come with you. You might have some relationships that have broken this year and you're just torn up about it. And I would tell you, there are people in your life for a season, a reason, and very few are there for life. And perhaps you are being elevated to a higher caliber or a different expression of friends, colleagues, perhaps a partner. The things that you've experienced that feel like they were torn from you, they were taken from you. Maybe you went and experienced some kind of job loss and you lost your role or your title or that company that made you feel a certain way. There was some identity you attached to that, and now you struggled to get the next job or the next opportunity. You are not a victim of those things. The world isn't happening to you. The world is happening for you. And that opportunity has opened up a new one to step into. That letting go is so that you can now hang on to something else. You opened your hand to let go so that you can now grasp your hand to possess something different, better, more. And looking at this next year, I know some of you might listen to this later. I'm recording this right now, the end of December. And if I'm looking at 2026, and for you listening, it doesn't have to be just this year. It can be whenever. If you want to look at what's moving forward, this is a moment in time for you to see through this lens, through this perspective. And for me, as I look into this next year, there's two words that come to me that I want to be like my themes, my commitment, my expression, I don't know. But the two words are this. One is simplify, and simplicity, I guess, would be another way of saying that. And then two is sonship. And let me define both those. I'll start with the simplify. And that's pretty easy because one is a simpler business. So the way that I do what I do, the way that I shape the messaging, making it clearer, simpler, less complex, less difficult. So my offer for what it is that I do and how I change lives, the structure of the business. So that's like one continuous customer journey, not 14 different things going on all at the same time and, pick and choose and making it confusing. The simplicity of how I do like lead generation. I want to do fewer things that drain me. I've realized that where I really excel is in speaking and talking, and I'll share more about that in just a moment. But it's kind of like, how can I do things that involve more play, more joy, more life? Because after all, that's what I'm here to do. And I hope in some way, maybe even you are too. And I've got 3 kids. 2 of them are teenagers. The third one, she's out of the house. She has her own life. And I don't want to miss out on some of these opportunities I have when all 3 kids are here in the same city of Lisbon, Portugal, for us to do things, to play. I mean, over these holidays, we've been putting together a puzzle. And this puzzle has this big blue sky in it with very little like difference. So you're looking at basically a whole bunch of puzzle pieces and 1,000-piece puzzle that are all the same color. It's super hard and aggravating, and it's taken us forever to finish this puzzle. And how fun. Like the memories we're going to have. I want more opportunities to do that. More play, more joy, more life, more beach, more chill. That's one. And I can still do that while I'm making a shit ton of money, while I am making an impact in the world. I wholeheartedly believe it. It's not about grinding anymore. No way. Number 2 is this word sonship. And my family and I, we do these Sunday morning breakfasts together. And then we do like a little devotion type of thing where we each take turns and, maybe share a song that we listen to and then reflect about what does that song mean to you? Or, what is some different ways to do a perspective on, I don't know, like each one of my kids is so unique and they have really cool ways of helping us to see things about ourselves. And I actually was doing an exercise about choosing a word, and I had a word that I was bringing to my family about this next year, and it was this word receive. And I have a thing that I tell my clients that I say, what if you could receive without striving? Because as high performers, we're so used to having a chip on our shoulder or being less than or whatever that has driven us to the success that we've experienced. And then at some point in time, you have to let go of that fuel to take on a different fuel that feeds you, because otherwise that becomes toxic. Well, it's actually toxic in the first place, but you got to use what you got when you first get started. And then you move into this next area of life. And I don't want to strive anymore. I don't want to have to manipulate, matriculate, manufacture my future. I want to receive. And so I went into this thing to tell my kids to receive. And in the moment of it, I got a different word. And the word that came to me in kind of a spiritual, supernatural way, I just believe like God just kind of whispered this to my soul. And he said, sonship. And it's really fascinating because receiving, adjective, action, is different than identity, sonship. One is an active type of thing. The other one just is an inherent thing. And I felt myself tearing up because in that moment I was like, if I'm done striving, if I'm done with, whatever that looks like in some sort of desperation or scarcity mindedness, what if I acted? What if I spoke? What if I believed? What if I trusted that things were being provided for me? Not putting me in this place of a passive state, but in a trust state, right? I'm not sitting here doing nothing. I'm not here like kumbaya, hoping something will fall in my lap, but more like as the son, things are provided for me. There's a roof over my head. There's food for my belly. There's opportunity presented to me, introductions made for me. I am part of something bigger than me. And it takes me out of myself and into trusting what's around me. And this has been a massive revelation for me this last week. And I just thought I'd share it with you is, these are the two words for me is I'm going to be in this place of simplicity and sonship. And I hope that you can find some word or words that speak to you this year from anchoring you to how you want to approach your life. And I want to give you one more kind of truth I guess, that I learned this year. And that is this, like, I am not a social media expert. I've been doing content for so long. And even here standing before you, like, I'm comfortable in front of a camera. I can talk. I have no problem with that. But I kind of suck at like building an audience in whatever ways the algorithms like to get us to do or think. And I've gotten so frustrated in this last year. I invested so much time, energy, and money into making things work through our podcast, through YouTube, through ads, through all this stuff. And I just could not make it work. And I finally just came to a conclusion that I suck at doing whatever that is. But I'm really good at speaking. I'm really good in rooms around people. I'm good in conversation. So what if I lean into that? And so this year, that's what I'm going to do more of. I'm going to be hosting events. I'm going to be speaking at other people's events for keynotes. I'm going to speak on other people's podcasts and do workshops for other people. And so if you have opportunities where you would like someone like myself to come and speak, like, hey, call me. Because I realize, and this was one of my shifts, is the more I put myself out there, the more that people can actually see who I am and experience what I do is far more valuable than a 15-second, 30-second, 60-second, song and dance on some kind of reel for TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Like, that's just not my jam. And my guess is it's probably not where you hang out either. So why am I trying to do what other people do? Why don't I just do what I do? And that's been a massive shift for me emotionally and energetically, as like, I'm going to be showing up here on LinkedIn and YouTube. Those are like the only two channels I'm focused on. The rest is just kind of peripheral. And I'm doing this on a daily basis. I want to show up every day. And if I miss a day, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'll just jump on the next day. But I'm going to be here committed to putting out what is on my heart and what I'm observing around the world. And, maybe one day I'll hire somebody or I'll partner with somebody who can make this social stuff work, make it not suck. But I'm not going to wait for that. I'm also not going to wait to be happy. I'm not going to wait to experience joy. I'm not going to wait for my book to come out to make money. I'm not going to wait for my book to come out before I give myself permission to get on stages. I'm not going to wait for anything anymore to create the life I desire today. Now, I'm creating a life that gives me that play, that gives me that joy, that gives me that peace today. And I've lived a degree of that. But I can tell you today, it's going to be very, very different from what I've ever experienced before. Look, you do not need to become someone else to do this. You don't have to become somebody else for this next year. I'm not talking about making some kind of crazy New Year's resolution. It says, I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. Like, willpower will only get you so far. And then you're going to go right back to your old ways, habits, and cycles. So instead, just create new habits and cycles. You will ultimately become someone different. Focus on that. What are some of the things that you can do to create those different cycles, the different habits in your life? And what if you just stop waiting to creating the life that you want? Stop putting something out there in the future that says one day, someday, I will, whatever, fill in the blank. Because something I want you to take from this is that life isn't something to be earned or accessed later. Life is happening around us now. And the business that you are creating, the life that you are creating is contingent around how you are showing up right now. So if this conversation today broke you in quiet ways, know this, you are not behind. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. If anything, you're finally telling yourself the truth. And that's my hope for you today, because that's what I'm doing. I'm finally telling myself the truth about some of the things I experienced this year. So if this kind of clarity matters to you, if this is the kind of stuff that is speaking to you, I've got some tools down in the description below to help you reset under pressure, to help you, take on some of these new habits and routines. You can find those down below. In addition, what did you like today? What did you need to hear today? What do you want more of? If you would, put those in the comments down below. Let me know how this landed with you. And if you're the kind of person who appreciates this kind of thinking that helps you lead better, go ahead and subscribe so you can get more. The mission here is simple. I'm aiming to get 10 million leaders to spend 10 minutes a day to become a 10.0 version of themselves. So to decide today if you're going to be one of them. I'll see you next time.